Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, hold on. We've got a new voice on the show. Sarah, what's going on? We've got a very handsome man with us. Morning, Boris. How are you?
Doing perfectly fine. Thank you very much. How are you?
Very well, very well. Boris, you have the honor of being our first guest host on the show. Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality Europe, my friend.
Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor, and I hope I'm not going to be the last. I hope this is a great show, and you would want to invite more guest speakers to join.
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure. Set the standard for it.
Now, Boris, we know that you're joining us at such a special time. You've just had a baby, is that right?
That's correct. I have a newborn at home. Hopefully you won't hear his voice during the show, but yeah, he's a lovely little boy. So that happened for me. Super happy about it.
That's amazing. And how many days, weeks ago was he born?
Exactly 2 weeks ago.
Wow. You getting any sleep, buddy?
Sort of. We're doing our best. 1 hour, 2 hours straight. I can get that during the night. Yeah.
Wow. That is impressive. Okay, well, Sarah, can you compete with that? Have you had a newborn in the last 2 weeks? I mean, where are you at?
I haven't had a newborn, but I feel sort of like I've had an awakening. So I did like a bit of a witchy ceremony with some of my girlfriends. I usually do it on New Year's. And it's basically just about, we light a bunch of candles and we put on some music and you kind of write down things that you're letting go of from the previous year or things that are holding you back. And then you share if you feel comfortable. And then we burn it, which feels great. It's very cathartic. And then you write down things that you're embracing for the upcoming year. And so it's something I've been doing for a few years now. I absolutely love it. It's a great way to kind of just get real with some of my friends as well and get to know each other better and be able to better support each other throughout the year because we know what our goals are and we know what we're leaving behind. And so somebody brings it up, it's like, no, we burned that. And so it was fabulous. This year we didn't do it on real New Year's, but we did it on Chinese New Year's because apparently last year was the year of Capricorn and that was no good. So I don't know about these things, but I
letting
feel
go of a lot
like
of stuff, right?
Yeah, I feel like a new outlook on life. Totally.
Nice.
Just woke up with a new zest the next day. So
great.
Highly
And
recommend.
I'm hoping that I didn't end up in your bucket of things you wanted to get rid of. Maybe I was in your bucket of things you wanted to embrace. No
Definitely
comment.
embracing, Leo. Definitely embracing. Yeah, no, I did not burn you in the fire of things past. No worries.
Well, look, you two have been busy. I've got nothing to report, so I will not waste our listeners' time by telling you about my usual runs and swims, although I just kind of did. Boris, for our audience that are not familiar with you, please introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you. So, long story short, in my previous life, I was working in finance, very little to do with hospitality. Spent some time in France, the US, the UK, and I got tired of the 9-to-5 job, even though it wasn't really a 9-to-5. So I quit my job and I wanted to build this amazing loyalty program for airlines. Moved back home to Bulgaria because life is a lot cheaper here. Started working on that startup, but one thing led to another. Usually that's how you get into the short-term rentals industry. At least that's how we used to get into the industry a while back. That was 2017. So I started managing this one little studio in Sofia, in the capital, of a friend's aunt who was living abroad. And I thought, okay, that's a pretty easy business to run. Little did I know what was going to happen afterwards, when I started getting more properties on board. Eventually, this turned into a business, hired a team, met my current co-founder shortly after I founded the company, and it grew to become one of the largest vacation rental management companies in Southeast Europe, I would say. Right now, it's managing, 700 properties across Bulgaria and Romania. So we managed to scale it pretty big. But last year, I had to let go of it. My other child, as I like to refer to that company, it grew. It was 7 years old, so send it to school. In our case, school was like a private equity fund. Nothing like school like that, right? So yeah, sold it. had 0 days off, still had 0 days off since the exit, which happened last summer, because working on a new company, again in the sector, called FlatAway. It's a new type of platform. I don't want to get too salesy and tell you about all the benefits for property managers if they sign up on the platform, but essentially it's a new OTA that's based on referrals for professional property managers only. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Amazing.
Trying to get the platform off the ground.
Amazing. You're also what would you say your title is? This Chief Organizer of Scale Eastern Europe, or is there another head honcho of Eastern Europe?
Let's go with Chief Organizer.
Chief Organizer.
It's a C-level position, so I like it.
Well, look, we're really excited. Yeah, we're really excited, and we're going to talk more about the Eastern European market. You've just been with the Minister of Tourism for Bulgaria, so I'm sure that's going to come out in some of the conversations. So, Scale, for anyone who doesn't know, tell us about this event that's happening in Eastern Europe.
Well, it's the first of its kind. We are holding a Scale show in the region for hosts and property managers. So that's one difference with other Scale shows. This one is open to hosts as well. So it's for anyone in the region. It's going to be a different event because of a few things. First of all, it's sort of an untapped market. It's not professionalized at all. And it's a first educational conference of its sort in the entire region. So we're super excited about it. We're getting quite a lot of speakers from all over the world joining for one day on the 28th of February. And Leo, you'll be joining us as well, I believe.
I'm very excited. I'm very much looking forward to it. And I've now just got to spend the next couple of weeks convincing Sarah to come and join me. I'm still working on that, right?
I mean, I don't want to come off as this patriot guy who's advertising his country too much, but you should come to Bulgaria, even if it's not for the Scale show. It's a lovely country. Having spent 12 years abroad myself, I really feel well here, not just because I'm from here. There's a lot we can offer. You have a beautiful seaside, summer ski resorts, lots of fun if you're into parties. So yeah, Sarah, you should seriously consider coming.
I'll add it to my bucket list. It's been on the list. It really has for a while. So I just need more holiday days, I mean,
hint. So there we go. Tell us, Boris, quickly before we start digging into the news stories. Sarah and I every week are talking about the regulatory landscape in Europe, and to be fair, we don't generally talk about the regulatory landscape in Eastern Europe that often because it's not an area that we have as much knowledge of. Can you tell us what the atmosphere is like? Because we know Bulgaria. You can ski, you can do coastal beach holidays, and then you've got the urban, clearly, which is a popular destination as well. How is the environment around short-term rentals in Eastern Europe and in Bulgaria more specifically?
It's quite favorable, actually. So there are no restrictions in Greece. If you count that as part of Eastern Europe, then they have some restrictions in place. But in Bulgaria and the neighboring countries like Romania, Serbia, Macedonia, it's very favorable for short-term rental hosts. That also causes a problem, though. You have oversupply in the market currently, so ADRs have been dropping in the past 2 years because everyone wants to get in on the short-term rentals game, But good news, we're working, and that's why I was meeting with the minister earlier today. We're working towards making sure that we level the playing field for everyone. You don't want the bad actors who are not paying taxes and pushing the ADRs down to, shift the market to twist it for everybody else. We don't have the problem of over-tourism. So we're not going to have any restrictions in terms of how many days a year you can rent out your property short-term or anything like that. It's just a matter of getting all these properties licensed and registered properly. Now there is, this European directive that's coming into force in 2026, whereby the platforms will have to transmit data to the European Union. That's going to impact Bulgaria and all EU member states, of course. So by that time, we will have a market that is pretty much a level playing field for everyone. So looking forward to that, but we're also trying to expedite it a little bit, hence my meeting with the minister.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Sorry, Sarah.
Oh no, so no worries. I just I think whenever we talk about regulation, and one of the things we talk about really often is this need for our industry to kind of band together to make sure that regulations that are being passed, if there are any, make sense. And so what is some advice that you would give to others in the industry when they're going into these meetings, say with the tourism board or with members of the local governments that are making going to be making these regulations if it does come to pass in the future? What are some tips that you would give them and information that they should be armed with when they go into those conversations?
Well, first and foremost, and that's a great question. First and foremost, every country needs to have a short-term rental association, and because that's the body that will organize these meetings. Without this association, I'm the president of the Bulgarian one, but without this association, we wouldn't be able to get to talk to the politicians because they're not really allowed to, or maybe even if they're allowed to, they cannot speak directly to an entrepreneur or a business owner. They need some sort of a body, a governing body that represents a certain sector in order to have a dialogue, and that's the most important thing. So, unfortunately, a lot of the countries in Eastern Europe still don't have these associations, which are absolutely crucial. We have the European Association, there's a global one that's being formed right now. We all need to come together because short-term rentals is such a fragmented sector. We all need to come together and make sure that we support each other, either with information or with best practices from different countries. So that's the best tip I can give anyone.
Awesome.
Amazing, Boris. So interesting. Let's get into it. We've got you here. Let's get your expert opinion on today's stories. Sarah and I are very excited to have you with us. So I'm going to start with something that caught my eye, a bit of a hospitality highlight for me this week, is that Guest Ready have launched their first UK serviced accommodation offering. Now, it's a central London property. We're talking 15 units within within a sort of old Georgian building. Very, very London, very, very London. You know, that is kind of how it is. That is how it kind of is in Zone 1 in the touristy bit. And it marks a change for them because obviously they're taking their short-term rental experience and the tech that they've built and their tech that they've put together and putting it into almost, I guess, thinking about this slightly serviced apartment / apart hotel. And the reason why it caught my eye is because it's so common in the US for companies to be in what they would call the multifamily sector. Less common in Europe, certainly in the UK, but seemingly becoming more of a thought process for people in the UK market. So, you know, we've got very, very big property management companies here that don't want to have any involvement in assets beyond just managing them. Now, Joavi, formerly Altido, I know have kind of played with this a little bit in Edinburgh. During peak seasons, you take over whole buildings, but maybe just for the summer. Good friend of mine, Dave Goodfellow, who I've mentioned before on the pod, No Key Stays. He's doing some great work in a coastal community which needs a huge revival. And I think there's an interesting story here for the short-term rental industry. Boris, I don't know if it's the same in Bulgaria or Eastern Europe, but in UK seaside towns, there's a lot of very, very run-down, failing hotels that just can't make it work because the cost of delivering the service in winter is too high. This is a potential strategy for those buildings to be converted into apart hotels, short-term rental, serviced accommodation, such that you can remove the fixed costs. And by leveraging things like smart locks, timed heating, apps that turn the lights on and off, all of that stuff that our sector is really comfortable using, Minute, like any other noise device that makes sure that there's not parties happening in one apartment that ruins the holiday of another, you can start to see that you can make these old, very, very beautiful, often Victorian buildings quite profitable for yourself. So I think this is a trend to watch. And I think as an industry, we need to be embracing it more. And as an industry, as a sector, we need to talk about how we can be part of that coastal town revival, because certainly in the UK, that's something that needs to happen.
Funny story, by the way. That's how we survived COVID. Back in my property management days, in the summer of 2020, we found a hotel that was not going to open. It was an apartment hotel that was not going to open for the entire season. And we told the owners, hey, can we have it? We moved there. I lived in the hotel for the entire summer season. And that hotel made more profit for the owners than it had made the year before.
Wow.
Just because, it was well positioned. You couldn't go out of the country. And we used our expertise and background and team running short-term rentals to run the hotel. It was okay. It was choppy, but met the guest expectations during that time, and that's how we survived. So definitely, I think there's a lot of opportunity for multifamily homes, for entire buildings to be turned into a mix between short-term rentals and a hotel. So there's a lot of positives to what Guest Ready is doing. I can see a lot of benefits. First of all, with respect to economies of scale, of course, on a micro level, with respect to that building. And second of all, in response to the increasing demand by guests for higher quality accommodation. So they're moving a little bit into the territory of these operators like Numa and Blue Ground. And I think that's a very smart move. The only downside I see to that is whether they're going to be able to meet these expectations. Maybe people would expect breakfast or something else. But I don't really see anything else. What do you think, Sarah?
I love this. I think it solves a lot of problems all at once. I think it solves also in some of the bigger cities. It solves a lot of the issues that are typically brought up as reasons for stricter regulation over short-term rentals. So it's not just, I mean, aside from the affordable housing crisis, there's all these concerns about safety and about neighbors and about all these kinds of things. Whereas if you come in and you have an entire building, not only does it allow the industry to be more professionalized and meet those standards, as you mentioned, Boris, but also it takes away a lot of those factors of the neighbors being like, oh, well, there's somebody coming in and out of the apartment next to me every day and I don't know who they are. It takes all of that away and it makes it easier to zone. It makes it easier for the government to control. The flip side of that, and where I don't know if I love it, is I think that if we go towards this model, especially in urban environments, and it begins to kind of catch on, it means that smaller hosts can't operate. And that to me is like what makes the short-term rental industry so fabulous. But it may be something that in order for our industry to survive in urban environments, we have to use this kind of model where it's like I purchase the whole building and it's more of an apart hotel situation. And we do exactly what you did, Boris, which is like bring your expertise in from short-term rentals, make it more agile, more startup-y, and increase profits, right? And maybe short-term rentals and the future of short-term rentals in Europe, based on kind of what's happening with regulation, are traditional holiday homes in these more rural environments or smaller towns. And maybe that is a way forward for the future for our industry to kind of keep surviving. So yeah, I love
It's
it.
an interesting evolution of your business model, isn't it? If you get to Guest Ready's level, where they started by not owning any of the assets. Now, to be clear, we don't know what the model is they've used here, whether they've taken on a longer lease. They've probably taken a 5-year lease perhaps and restyled the homes. And that's something to also think about is, I agree, Sarah, you've made that point before about barriers to access. But again, it's a smart thing to do if you're looking for your next growth opportunity, right? I initially, obviously, I was at One Fine Stay, and I think we shied away from taking on like longer leases or even purchasing, like financing to purchase buildings when we still had maybe a slight advantage in the London market, and we kind of shied away from it because we had this asset light approach. Now, clearly, when something happens like COVID, you feel like that's potentially then a good thing because there is 2 months. We had a 2-3 month lockdown in the UK where nothing was moving. But again, you have to take a bit of risk sometimes. And I think if you can see the way the wind's blowing, I also make the other point, Sarah, repeatedly, is this a whole load of similarly sized buildings that used to be offices, like these buildings that they're not the big purpose built offices. In London, especially, you got a lot of Victorian housing stock that was converted into offices. All of that's coming back on the market, right? As office culture kind of withers and slowly dies. So yeah, one to watch for sure. Sarah, take us to our next article, my friend.
Oh, I'm so excited about this one. And I am extremely excited to chat with Boris about it because he has been on every side of the equation. So what caught my eye this week was an article in FocusWire, which is the classic question of to be or not to be. No, to seek funding or not seek funding as a startup in the short-term rental industry. And I think, if it's done right, it can propel your business, take it to the next level and allow you to scale quicker. But if it's done poorly, it can absolutely decimate all of the sweat equity that you have put in. You lose control of your vision and everything else. And I feel like this is something that Boris has done fabulously with his experience. And so there were several different kind of mentionings of the different phases in the article, and I'll kind of just recap them, and then I want to dive into some specifics from Boris's experience. But There's obviously sort of the bootstrapping and the beginnings, which is where you're super agile and everything is easy, but you don't have money. But the benefit is you can kind of pivot really quickly. Another option in here that was mentioned, which I haven't really heard a whole bunch of in our industry, so I would love to hear your thoughts. The next one was crowdfunding. Did you ever do any kind of crowdfunding, Boris, at
Did
all?
that too. Done it all. I've done it all.
Okay. And then the next two were venture capital, right? And private equity, which we have mentioned. And so each of those kind of have their downfalls, right? There's, obviously a need to be more profitable, and how do you get more profitable? You slash costs and try and raise revenue. So I'm curious about maybe an experience of each of these kind of different phases that you've had, and kind of, I just want to hear more, and we'll keep asking questions in the middle.
Sure. First, I need to make a distinction. There's one story when it comes to property management companies and hosts, and another story when it comes to any other tech provider, OTAs, purely technology businesses. So first, on the property management side, it's extremely difficult to raise venture capital. Why? Because venture capital funds, they require global vision, they require a scalable model. And property manager is a very ops heavy, boots on the ground, you need people in every market kind of business, which VCs traditionally don't really like. So when we first started out as a property management company, we did a friends and family round. That's, I think they're not touching upon that one in the article, but it's basically a way to get some funds from people that you know in your very close network. It doesn't have to be a family member or a real friend, just a very small number of funds that will kick off your scaling if you want to scale as a property manager. Because you're always understaffed, always overstaffed. It's very difficult to maintain steady growth trajectory when it comes to the financials as a property manager. Now, we managed to convince local prop tech, so property technology VC fund, to invest in our property management company. But the way we did that was, back in the day, we had a vision of doing a franchise model, something like what Cassego has done. So we started with that. We fundraised a little bit, but we quickly saw that we need to separate the two. So stop being a property manager, become a technology company or a franchise, but you need to separate the two. We actually did a spin-off of the two in completely separate entities, separate teams, and that's when we became more interesting for venture capital. Now, if you've grown your property management business, if you have 200, 300 units under management, or if you have less but very unique properties in markets where there's not a lot of competition, and you want to exit, so you want to cash in on what you've built, or you want to grow, but like seriously grow through acquisitions, then you go the private equity route. Private equity, they would look into your profitability. They would look into how you've set up your house. So you need to have clear financials, clear path to increasing profits in the long run, and a clear strategy. So you can either be the platform. The platform is what they invest in, and then they increase the capital of that company so that it buys different smaller property managers. Or you could be an add-on, which is one of these smaller property managers that is being bought. Both cases, money comes from a private equity, which usually consolidates the market. And short-term rentals being so fragmented, there's a lot of possibilities for consolidation, and it's happening right now. Now, that's the property management story. If you're running a tech business, like a SaaS, software as a service, or an OTA or anything like that, then you are probably going to go the VC round. In both cases, you could do friends and family first, but the next step would be VC. We did a VC round combined with fundraising, with crowdfunding. Honestly, crowdfunding wasn't the best experience because we ended up having our friends and people who know us join the round, and we paid a fee to the crowdfunding platform. We might as well have just reached out to them directly. But it depends on the situation. If you have a large community, if you manage to build a large community or a very well-known brand, then crowdfunding could be a good way to go. We didn't do that with FlatAway. We didn't have a brand when we're doing the crowdfunding. So that's why we ended up just getting money from people we need. And right now we're fundraising again. It's a very harsh process for anyone out there who's considering fundraising from venture capital. You need a stellar team, you need a stellar vision, scalable model, and depends on the stage, but you need to show that your product can fit the market you're targeting. Luckily, short-term rentals, vacation rentals is a huge market, $100 billion market, as we'd like to say. So there's not going to be a problem with that. They'll check the team, they'll check the product, and how it actually benefits the end customer. Leo, you've raised funding yourself, so you can also chip into that.
Yeah, so where my mind goes, so obviously we've done it from the software side, which is a different game, right? And you make the point, Boris, about that idea of like VCs looking at scalability. You know, that was going to be what I was going to say as well. I think the challenge is for a boots on the ground ops heavy property management company is how do you show multiples that make yourself interesting to VC? And I guess where my mind is, and that there are a few exceptions to the rule in Europe, but I assume that's why we haven't seen from the private equity side, we haven't seen too many roll-ups in Europe. I know it's been done slightly, you know, we talked about, and we know that Host and Stay have raised capital, and some of that, they're buying up a lot of UK businesses, and they're keeping one eye on Europe as well. But I think it's very hard because there's so much local difference and nuance around Europe that it's not the same as the US, where you could more aggressively try the Vacasa model of trying to roll it up. But it does make me think, and Sarah, maybe I'm repeating something you've said in the past, but it's like makes me think that the franchise model in Europe is probably going to be the one, because then you have that focus on here we go. I'm going to say it again, hyper local. Can't resist saying it every week. You can keep that local ops, local team, cultural nuance of dealing with owners, because the fear I think would be, you know, for private equity getting into the space and trying to roll it up around just in the traditional management model is people often like to deal with a local company. So you get like that kind of resident benefit, or, you know, you become like the king of your market. And Boris, you probably felt like you had that in your market. Right, like if someone came in from the outside, you can go, oh, they don't understand Sofia, they don't understand Bulgaria, and their fees are low, but the service level is low. And we've seen that fail, right? We've seen people come in. I won't name too many names, but there's companies that have come in, raised a lot of money, failed, and had to pull out because you just can't compete with local knowledge. Whereas the US, although it is definitely regional and state by state, there's nuance. There's less nuance because everyone speaks a common language, and it's a common set of rules around how you do business.
Yeah, you're entirely right. And we saw that when we were exiting our own property management company. The buyers, the private equity fund, they wanted to keep the entire team. There were even clauses that the key people from the team would remain within the company, just because they know very well that it's a hyperlocal business. You need to know the market inside out. And then you have the added complexity, which is property management system, the whole tech stack. You need to unify the tech stack across every single acquisition you make as a private equity fund. And that takes a long time, because I don't know if you've done migration from different PMSs when you have more than 100 or 200 properties. It's a nightmare. It will go wrong. People will will not be able to check in their properties for sure. Like, I've never heard about a migration that did not go wrong in a couple of ways. So certainly here, either the franchise model or private equity plays where they buy out national champions in a given region. A national champion is a PE term for the market leader. It could be on a city level. It could be also on a country level. That will be the way to go in the next couple of years.
Very interesting. Boris, thanks for sharing that. And Sarah, Airbnb in the news for, I think it's fair to say, making it easier for guests to cancel effectively. You can dress this up however you want, but they're testing it in a few markets, or they've rolled it out in a few markets, a couple of them in Europe specifically. We've got Sweden, we've got Poland and Turkey. What's changing? So guests will be able to cancel for after 24 hours for free, which is something that wasn't necessarily the case before. And they're removing the strict policy, so you can't again, which makes it harder for our hosts who want to guarantee some level of income up to X amount of days before the arrival, such that in many cases, as a guest, you could cancel an agreed amount of time before the booking and get a full refund. Big change, really, when you think that, I haven't booked anything on Airbnb where I haven't had to pay something up front. And to me, that feels new. Now, cynically, I think it's probably just a simple play for the fact that Booking.com also do the same thing, and they're becoming more guest-centric as a business. But either way, it doesn't feel nice for the supplier. It feels, again, like maybe the suppliers, of many of which are our listeners, are slightly getting bashed around by Airbnb. So, yeah, I guess question to you both, start with you, Sarah, is it a misstep from Airbnb, or is it just something they got to do and we'll all get on with it?
It depends on their objectives. If you're Airbnb and you are, especially in this new world, competing more and more for bookings, and you want to ensure that those bookings take place on your OTA and not become irrelevant, it's a super smart move. Because I'm thinking about myself as a guest. I want that more security. And so, okay, I might pay a slightly higher price on Airbnb, but I know that I can cancel. In fact, I often do. Anytime I don't know why, but anytime I book a holiday, I only filter for properties with free cancellation, where I can cancel, let's say, within a week before the stay or whatever it is, because I often plan my holidays months in advance. I'm a big planner. And so I like the idea of knowing that I've got this opportunity locked in, but if something happens, I can change. And so I usually book flights at the last minute, but I book my accommodation sometimes months in advance, but always with free cancellation. And that is one of the only times in like more recent years where historically I could do the same and book directly. But if I don't have that option to book directly with that cancellation policy, I'm willing to pay more for the flexibility. We also know that booking lead times are going down. So most bookings are made within a month of the stay, especially within Europe. And so people are taking more last minute holidays. They're not planning as far in advance. And so if they are going to plan that far in advance, they definitely want the flexibility. And I think that's why we're seeing these booking windows shrinking, because either people aren't planning soon enough or they don't want to get stuck with a property until they're sure that they can go. So yeah, I think it's a really smart move for Airbnb. I think it's not necessarily great for owners and for hosts, but it's smart for Airbnb to increase their bookings on the OTA.
Well, I completely agree with you, Sarah. It's great for guests. It's great for travelers, especially travelers like you who prefer to keep their options open, so to speak, until the last minute. Now, for hosts, to me, it seems that that's just yet another thing that's going to make hosts and property managers' lives more complicated, because when you are not certain whether you're going to get revenue for a certain unit up until like even a week before the check-in time, it makes it very difficult to manage your finances. And that's yet another move which is completely in line with the strategy of large OTAs, of the incumbent OTAs. They're competing on the demand side. We know full well that if you're operating a vacation rental, 99 out of 100 times you would list it on Airbnb, right? I mean, the supply on Airbnb is sort of stuck there. So Airbnb as a company is very comfortable in that position on the supply side of the equation. However, on the demand side, there's a lot of competition. You have Booking.com, you have VRBO, they're all competing, chasing the same guest and trying to offer more and more value to the guest, which is completely normal. It's just how the business model of traditional OTAs works. So I can definitely see that causing more headaches for property managers. Unfortunately, it's not something that they are doing because of regulation or anything like that. For me, it's just yet another way to attract more demand to the platform. That's it.
Interesting though, because wherever Airbnb and Booking.com go, hosts have to go themselves with their direct booking website, right? Otherwise, it's just another reason why they won't be able to convert that guest into being a direct customer. So again, it moves the goalpost, maybe in a way that is just inevitable. Perhaps, if we're thinking, Sarah's talked about how it feels to be the guest. Maybe as suppliers, we just need to embrace it and realize that we'll catch more fish if we have more bait on the rod, right? So let's just embrace it and be a bit more flexible. It's hard because, when does a booking become a booking? And I know with my One Fine Stay hat on from back in the day, owners, the people that you're partnering with, the minute they get that alert through to say they've got a booking, that's a booking. They've already spent the money. So it's really hard because you then start to disappoint them if you then have to tell them that it pulls back and it's not going to happen.
I do actually cancel too. I reckon 50% of the property, you guys don't want to hear this, 50% of the properties I book, I actually end up canceling because I just wanted to secure this is like the best thing possible for that specific weekend and I don't want to lose it, or I'm going in a group and we need 5 bedrooms or whatever. I mean, yeah. So I am guilty of that, and I'll cancel like a month before if I have to. So a booking is not a booking until the guests are in the beds.
Yeah. Good honesty from Sarah there. I like that. It's a bit of a therapy session, wasn't it? Guys, Boris, thanks so much for joining us. Sarah, this has been a hoot, hasn't it? How fun.
This is fab. Thanks so much, Boris.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, really an honor to be the first guest on the show. Hopefully more to come after me.
You'll come back, I'm sure. We'll definitely invite you back. So just remind everyone, Scale Eastern Europe. Where is it? When is it?
28th of February, happening in Sofia, Bulgaria. It's a one-day show, so you need to come on the 27th. We're going to have a party in the evening. Then wake up early in the morning. The mayor of the city has confirmed he's going to join. Also, the Minister of Tourism is most likely going to come. And then you have a bunch of people that you all know, Simon Lemon, Richard Walton, Robin Clifford. They're all coming. James Cassidy as well. So really, if you're from the region, that is not a show you should miss. And if you've never been to Bulgaria, that is also not something you should miss. So look forward to having you all in Sofia, 28th of February. Yeah.
Amazing. Boris, thank you. And thanks, Sarah. Lovely to see you, my friend. For anyone at home, please hit like, share, subscribe in all the usual social places, or go onto your regular podcast app and give us a 5-star review and a comment. It really helps. Until next week, many thanks.
Thanks. Bye.